We don't have quorum, right?
Let's see who we have up here.
1, 2,
1, 2,
3, 4. No, we do.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, the webinar is streaming now. So
Great. And okay, we can. Okay, and the chancellor just got on. So, Vice Chair Swanson, whenever you would like to get started, you can.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone. Good afternoon. The Thursday, April 8th, 2021 meeting of the Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Services is now called to order. For the record, we continue to be subject to restrictions in the size and types of gatherings that are permissible. The state of Illinois continues to operate under a statewide disaster proclamation first issued by Governor Pritzker on March 9th, 2020, and actually reaffirmed on February 5th. Will the Assistant Board Secretary please call the roll?
Sure. Secretary Davis is not quite on yet. Trustee Kent?
Present.
Trustee Williams?
Present.
Student Trustee Thomas?
Here.
I think Secretary Davis? Secretary Davis?
Ashley, I'm here. Peggy
Perfect.
Davis.
Great. And Chair Massey?
Here.
Vice Chair Swanson?
Here. All right, thank you. So welcome again. It's great to be back to holding our regular committee meetings, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. I will be brief, and I know that Chair Massey will mention this in his remarks during the board meeting, but I wanted to take a moment and recognize all of the semifinalists for the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship again. Chair Massey and I had the chance to meet with them with the CCC semifinalist a couple of weeks ago, and it was just a joy to be with them, and really enjoyed getting to hear from the students about their goals and dreams for academic careers after city colleges. And I know I speak for the rest of the board when I say that we wish them well. But it was a great time to spend with students. So thank you to the Chancellor and Provost Potter for also helping make that happen. So today we will get to hear from Chief of Strategy and Staff Veronica Herrero and Vice Chancellor Rhonda Brown about the grants and funds that directly support our students. In addition to the presentation, we will also review the board reports that will be considered during the April regular board meeting, which will take place later this afternoon at 2 p.m. So before we get started, Provost Potter, do you have any remarks for us today?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Swanson. I want to begin by expressing appreciation. It's now been a little more than a year since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a year during which City Colleges has delivered most instruction and student services remotely. With only a 1-week pause to make the pivot, we've managed to meet our students' educational needs while maintaining a quality student experience. My appreciation extends to the faculty, staff, and administrators for their student-centered focus and their adaptability over this past year. Our students too have shown remarkable persistence during this unprecedented year. Altogether, the City Colleges community has shown unparalleled adaptability and resolve, for which I and the Chancellor too are deeply appreciative. Open registration began this week for summer and fall classes. As we look to the fall semester especially, we've worked to ensure robust options for students, including choices for in-person, online live, and traditional online courses that credit students will find at all 7 colleges. Adult education students will find options that include online, hybrid, distance learning, and face-to-face. Beginning in late summer, in time for our peak registration period for fall semester, student services will be offered both in person and through virtual student services. Next week, our colleges will hold virtual open houses, and I encourage everyone to share the info with your networks. To register, people can go to ccc.edu/open house. In today's committee meeting, we will hear from Chief of Staff and Chief Strategy Officer Veronica Herrero and Vice Chancellor Rhonda Brown, as Vice Chair Swanson mentioned, who will be providing an update on the successes we've had in securing both private and public grant funding. The review of board reports will include several innovative projects, a grant project for Project SAFE, which stands for Securing a Fear-Free Environment, and that will launch an education and training program around gender-based violence, as well as a violence prevention effort involving Olive Harvey's cannabis program, and also a robust resource development report, to name just a few of the items today. We have a lot to cover, so with that, I'll turn it back to you, Vice Chair Swanson. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Potter. We will now begin the review of agenda items. And so again, we will start the Chief of Strategy and Staff, Herrero, and Vice Chancellor Brown, if you would please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Swanson. So we're incredibly excited to have this opportunity to share with you all of the growth that we've experienced in both public and private fundraising. And it's really clear that we're entering a new phase for the foundation, one that is leading us to be more focused, more strategic, and more efficient than ever before. We have an outstanding leader in Rhonda Brown, our Vice Chancellor of Advancement and President of the Foundation, and an advancement team that is really savvy and eager to raise more dollars to support our students and to support our recently launched strategic framework, our path forward. Today, we will share with you a snapshot of the growth that we are experiencing, where the growth is coming from, and we'll do a spotlight on our equity-focused grants and our next steps. So with that, I will hand it off to Vice Chancellor Brown.
Thanks, Veronica, and thanks for the opportunity to take a deep dive into our advancement efforts. I'm pleased to share information. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I'm pleased to share information about our team infrastructure, key data points, and our plan to align the work with the institutional strategic plan and the work ahead. What is the headline about the grants work? It is that City Colleges of Chicago and the City Colleges of Chicago Foundation are matching opportunity with resources to increase grants from public and private sources. We are collaborating with internal partners and colleagues at the colleges and within the district to increase efficiencies and scale up the submissions and grants awards. This work is truly exciting and gratifying. There is a strong team, as Veronica said, behind these efforts, which includes both Veronica and myself. Together, we set the strategy for the grants work, manage the majority of the private relationships with foundations, and convene cross-functional teams to build concepts for our big grants. Christiane Montgomery, Director of Grants Management, and Linda Lee, Grants Associate, focus their efforts on research, managing the grant writer's resource, grant compliance, reporting, tracking, and oversight. They are the lifeblood of this effort. Chris and Linda also manage a team of 5 grant writing consultants that are primarily writing federal and state grants at the 500,000 plus level and above. In most cases, these grants are new opportunities for us. Finally, below the dotted line is our district and college grant teams. We could not do this work without them. This includes faculty, presidents, deans, VPs, college administrators. We call them principal investigators in our world. They are on the ground leading the work, and they are critical to our success and implementation of grants from day to day. Not shown on this slide, but also integral to this work are the members of the Treasury team and college finance teams. We work with Maribel and many members of her team to ensure that we are on track with budgets and spending. Next slide, please. The following 2 charts detail grant submissions and grant awards comparing 2020, FY20, and FY21 from July 1 through March 31st. The chart also details submissions by source, which includes the 7 colleges, the district office, and the foundation. As Veronica said, we have seen significant growth in submissions for several reasons. Here they are. The team has created a new infrastructure that supports our partners in the colleges and the district office with research, resources to complete the grants, as well as added grant writing supports. To provide context, CCC started to use the grant writers the last 2 quarters of fiscal year 2020. Within those 6 months, we submitted 5 grants. From those submissions, CCC was awarded $4.7 million. So that's 4.7 of the 23.6. I'm sorry, $4.7 million of the next slide. With new staff and infrastructure in place, we began fiscal year 21 with a plan to pair grant writers with colleges to work on our submissions right away. To date, 21 of the 95 submissions were written by contracted grant resources. The balance of the submissions are typically renewal grants and are managed by the district office and our college teams with consult from the advancement team. You will also notice here variances in college submissions from year to year. This is great, as we are seeing across the board, we have staff, faculty, and administrators actively seeking grant opportunities. COVID emergency, recovery, and education funder interest is absolutely one of the reasons for the spike in foundation submissions in FY21. I would also add that we now have a stronger infrastructure to respond to private philanthropy and see this as a growth area for the foundation and colleges perhaps in the short and long term. Next slide. This is where our team gets really fired up. We are winning more grants. The number of grant awards have increased by 66%. While the dollar amount did not increase as much as the conversion rate, we are doing more and winning more. I want to draw your attention to a few important points from this chart. First of all, the colleges, district offices, and the foundation all have numbers on the board. That's really exciting and motivating to us and to them. Also, as an institution, we are collaborating. Everyone, the colleges, the district office, we're all working together and working with us. The colleges are working together and working with us. They are telling us they feel really supported. Finally, in FY20, we spent just $40,000 on the contract writers. And remember, as I said earlier, their work started in the 3rd quarter of that year. Their submissions generated 27% of the awarded dollars during the reported timeframe. In July 1, this fiscal year, we activated the grant writing resources immediately for the reported time frame. And we tripled the spend of our expenses to $121,000. And we also have generated 25% of the $28.8 million noted here. Next slide, please. Now that we have a path forward, Veronica and I have the fodder to create an institutional advancement plan that is aligned with our 3 to 5 year strategic plan. This is what funders crave: clearly stated goals and objectives that allows us to articulate the vision for city colleges and match it with public and private resources. Next slide. Before we pivot to Veronica, who will highlight some of the new foundation grants mentioned previously, I do want to share an important moment of our advancement work. A year ago, late March, the Chancellor received a request from the funding community to articulate the emergency needs of City College's students related to the pandemic. As he was focused on transitioning the institution from face-to-face to remote courses, the request, of course, was passed on to me. Between March and May 2020, the foundation raised $800,000 in student emergency funds from private philanthropy and put in place a plan to disperse those funds through all Chicago. We also raised $2.2 million for the Chancellor's Retention Fund, which is an incentive grant to help students with unpaid balances stay enrolled. It was this response to the RFPs to the range of COVID emergency funds that accelerated and deepened our conversations with the foundation community. And as a result, we are now having really excellent conversations about our equity strategy, enrollment strategies, and programs that are laser focused on improving outcomes for Black and Latinx students. With that, I'll turn it over to Veronica. Next slide, please.
So aligned with our strategic framework and equity goals, we are focusing much of our fundraising efforts around equity and Black excellence and equity in particular. These are three of the grants that we want to highlight. One is that we're very proud of is with Bank of America, the Tequity grant with Chicago at Harold Washington. And second is the SDI Presence Tech Launchpad at Kennedy King for another $1 million. And also the Crown Family Philanthropies CPS Class of 2020 Enrollment Initiative for $1.2 million. All three, as you can see, it's a combination of both district efforts that will help us across all colleges, as well as very specific college efforts to help the equity, our equity work at the college level. Next slide, please. So earlier this year, we were awarded $1.3 million by the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust to support one of our equity strategies from our path forward. This grant will support the first 18 months of our 3-year plan to build capacity, infrastructure, and culture to support equity efforts across the district, and ultimately to build the foundation that we need to eliminate racial equity gaps at city colleges. This grant allows us to bring on critical hires, such as our new Associate Vice Chancellor for Racial Equity, Bruce King, who will be leading this work, and third-party partners to support the execution and coordination of this work. Next slide, please. So now, just quickly, I'll give you a high-level overview of what the work of this specific equity strategy will entail. So taking from the Aspen Institute's Equity Leadership Framework, we outlined 4 major activities that are critical to building an equity-focused infrastructure. We'll create the platforms to be able to define and monitor equity across the district. We'll continue to build on our district capacity to monitor our data and harness our equity lens to make sure we are having the intended impact on our outcomes, specifically among our Black and Brown students. Second, we'll build continuous improvement capacity across the district, creating a collaborative and collective learning community across all colleges in partnership with our third-party partner. Third, this grant will also allow us to launch an equity microgrant program to empower college teams to design and test strategies and solutions that are shaped by continuous improvement methods. This work takes on an inclusive approach that will inspire equity-focused and student-centered creativity. It will lead to cross-college sharing of best practices and a collective understanding of what works so that we can double down on promising solutions that are informed by those of us who are at our colleges and closest to our students. And finally, we'll be building a culture of equity and transparency through professional development, collaboration, partnerships, and reporting. And achieving equity is core to our path forward. And while this grant is pivotal to our work, equity is not achieved with a single strategy. We will need to continue fundraising for this work through our Black Excellence and Equity Fund and continue to harness our existing resources towards our equity goal. And I'll hand it back to VC Brown. Next slide.
While we have seen significant strides forward, we are reaching toward building a strong advancement machine, especially as we've learned about the range of grant opportunities that are forthcoming from the Department of Education. We want to be prepared to meet the growing list of grant opportunities. Toward that end, as I mentioned earlier, an advancement plan will allow us to have a clear path for grant submissions versus being responsive to every grant that comes our way. When the asks are strategic, the content is stronger and the likelihood of getting the funds increase. Each college has a development council that we want to continue to support and help the colleges make their own development advancement plans. We are also in the process of creating an institution-wide grant training that will be a resource to current and new employees. And we will see the direct result of the grant writers' efforts more writers will only increase, and as we see the direct result of grant writers' efforts, we will see, more writers will only increase as the submissions and awards rates increase at the same time. An ever expanding group of us have been invited to present to education funders. These calls usually include 40 to 60 funders, foundation, family foundation, and individual philanthropists that give in the education space. They are deepening their understanding about the city colleges of Chicago, and they're continuing to invite us back. These conversations have instilled confidence in our work and is very important to our cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship efforts. And with that, we'll move to the last slide and open up the floor for questions.
I have a question. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. So there's this faculty member at Truman, I forgot her name, who wrote this National Science Foundation grant, and then got it renewed to start this program with UIC, Urbana, I think, and other schools in engineering. So how does the central function that you're describing, how do you interact with individual faculty members who have ideas and want to go to an agency like the NSF or the Department of Defense or whatever?
And Chair Massey, I believe you're referring to Doris Espiritu at Wright College, right?
Right, not what? Yeah, right. I'm
Wright
sorry.
College, yeah.
Right. Sorry about that, David, if he's on here.
So we work with faculty members who are interested in applying for grants. In fact, we submit on a weekly basis a list of prospect opportunities for faculty, presidents, et cetera, to review and get back in touch with us about their submission and their proposal submission. So we partner with them, answer any questions that they have about the guidelines. And really what we want to do is ensure that if, for example, we do use one of our grant writers for the NSF grant, which I believe we have used a grant writer for NSF grants in the past, that the guidelines match, what we are, match the opportunity, so that if there's a match, then we push forward and then have them work on the grant. And our grant writers are extremely skilled at winning these federal grants. We've actually, when we did the hiring of them, we were looking for grant writers specifically with this area of expertise.
I might just add, Chair Massey, I think an important component of this here is that, the faculty member is coming through the president, and the president is sort of setting the priority for this within the institution. So in the case of, this particular faculty member, it's a very high priority item for President Potash. He's, actually, when I began here, Professor Spiritu was, had this vision in her mind, but wasn't yet supported, if you will, to bring it to fruition. She's now the director of the engineering programs, and so there's sort of a pathway to supporting her, and then the foundation is supporting that effort, if you will, right? So I think that's an important element here.
That's great. The reason I ask that is I know some, maybe many institutions, the central development capacity doesn't always have the level of expertise and knowledge of the agencies, especially science agencies and others, that the faculty have about, because it's a disciplinary kind of a relationship. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that you guys have a real partnership. Wonderful.
Are there any other questions?
I had a question. So thank you, and just obviously incredible work for everybody. And curious about, as people start to understand sort of city colleges and the work. So as you mentioned, like funders and philanthropists, and actually this is timely. This morning I was in a different meeting with Bank of America and not about city colleges, but brought up the recent investment in Harold Washington. They're so proud to be partnering with city colleges. So it was fun to be also be able to wear that hat for a minute and thank them for their support. But you know, just how, and they talked about being introduced actually through the some of the relief funding work back last summer, and then now there's a partnership. And I'm just curious if are you also tracking or thinking about how people are introduced to us? I'm thinking like the 7 Strong series was, I think, just incredibly successful. And like, do we then turn those, you know, sort of like we introduce them, but then, you know, the team has a plan to then hopefully bring them along, you know, introduce them even further, deeper, develop partnerships. And I guess just as you think about continuing to kind of connect city colleges out in that the donor world, I just be curious like how people are finding us and how what's the ROI on some different events? Is it, you know, being at those philanthropy tables? Is it the 7 Strong series? Is it something else entirely? I don't know, just how you're thinking about that.
This is a great question. I think it's a mix of it all, and it will be, you know, we have been largely responsive for a long time, Vice Chair Swanson, and we see such opportunity in looking at different audiences and looking at the ways in which we are connecting with those audiences as ways to bring donors in. So that will be part of how we're going to build out the advancement strategy. To include, you know, really thinking about how this specific donor was engaged within the institution and then kind of building on that conversation. For example, Northern Trust is very interested in supporting one of our programs for the summer, which is, it's a new opportunity for us. And we've known them for quite some time, but we're more deeply introduced to them through the 7 Strong event. So there's so many different opportunities that are coming to us as a result of having deeper engagement across the board.
Yeah, that's great. Any other questions from trustees? Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. And there is just so much going on behind the scenes. I know you mentioned your teams, you know, and everyone working to support our students financially and otherwise. So please extend our thanks to your teams as well. We will now move on to review the items proposed for board action at the April 8th regular board meeting, which will take place directly after this meeting starting at 2 p.m. Will the Assistant Board Secretary please proceed with the review of board reports?
Yes. Thank you, Vice Chair Swanson. For our presenters, you'll proceed directly one after another. Briefly give a pause so that the trustees will have an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have. We'll begin with the resolutions. ABC Anthony will review resolution 1.00, followed by Provost Potter's review of resolution 1.01, and then President Hollingsworth will review resolution 1.02. So ABC Anthony, please get us started.
Thank you. Resolution 1.00 confirms and ratifies a memorandum of understanding and amendment with the City of Chicago, acting through the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, for the use of CCC facilities for the purposes of mass immunization or prophylaxis in the event of an emergency. The amendment allows the city to retain a contractor to staff, equip, and operate the vaccination point of distribution at Daly College under the direction and control of the city through October 21, 2021. This resolution also provides the Chancellor with authority to extend in writing the term of the amendment up to April 21, 2022, and to add or remove contractors for each point of distribution.
Resolution 1.01 seeks authorization of a memorandum of understanding between city colleges, Lifespan, and the Chicago Police Department that includes funding to support lifespan services in support of Project SAFE. City Colleges is a grant awardee of the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Violence Against Women. That grant creates Project SAFE at City Colleges that will connect students who have experienced domestic violence to campus and community-based supports. The program will increase educational initiatives and provide training to faculty, students, staff, and law enforcement, and improve collaboration between City Colleges, local service providers, and law enforcement to enhance gender-based violence response. Billable services up to $240,000 over 3 years provided by Lifespan will include referral and advocacy work by a dedicated part-time advocate, training and consultation, and participation in the City College's coordinated community response team.
Resolution 1.02 seeks authorization for Olive Harvey College to join with the City of Chicago to launch a short-term pilot program for 30 participants in the spring of 2021. Participants will all be afforded a scholarship to obtain a career in cannabis certificate, a paid work-based learning opportunity, and wraparound services, including childcare and transportation support. A long-term program slated to start fall 2021, named the Still I Rise program, will provide 50 participants with the same services as the short-term pilot, along with additional wraparound services such as mentoring, workforce development, mental health services, and therapy, all of which City Colleges will contract with community partners to provide. This program will commence May 1, 2021, ending May 31st, 2023. Upon approval, the City of Chicago will provide $1,660,000 to the board for use in connection with this program.
Thank you. There are no questions on the resolutions. CTO Dunning, please review item 2.00, the personnel report.
Board item 2.0 is a request to approve the April 2021 personnel report. There are 50 actions on this month's report. They include 14 new and rehires, 18 promotion, title, and salary changes, and 18 separations and retirements.
Excellent, thank you. Chief of Strategy and Staff Herrero, please review item 3.00, the resource development report.
Thank you. The April Resource Development Report includes 5 awards totaling $2.6 million. Additionally, there were 24 grant applications submitted totaling $58.5 million. Awards received include a new grant for $500,000 from an anonymous donor to support our Chancellor's Retention Fund. Of the 24 grant applications submitted, 14 were to the U.S. Department of Education for the Higher Education Relief Fund, or HERF-2. HERF-2 is authorized by the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, signed into law by former President Trump on December 27, 2020. This is in addition to HERF-1, which was authorized and provided last spring through the CARES Act. 7 of these grants are for direct student support, 1 for each of our 7 colleges, and total $12,726,135. The other 7 are for institutional support and total $40,485,114. Also to note are the 3 TRIO grant applications submitted by Malcolm X, Olive Harvey, and Kennedy King. Malcolm X has submitted for the TRIO Education Opportunity Grant for $1.2 million, and Olive Harvey and Kennedy King Colleges submitted for the TRIO Talent Search for $1.4 million and $1.8 million, respectively. These are highly competitive grants, but we are nonetheless enthusiastic about these submissions. This concludes the April Resource Development Report. Thank you.
Secretary, can I just add? We will be doing a presentation at the next month's committee meeting regarding the HERF funds. This is something that Chair Massey and I have been discussing, and so just wanted to let the board members know that we will be doing that presentation at the next board committee meeting.
Thank you. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the agreements, which will proceed as follows. ABC Anthony will report on agreements 4.00, 4.01. CFO Rodriguez will review agreements 4.02 through 4.05. Provost Potter will report on agreement 4.06, followed by CIO Martin with agreement 4.07. Chief of Strategy and Staff Herrera will report on agreement 4.08. President Thomas will review agreement 4.09, and agreement 4.10 will be pulled from consideration at this time. ABC Anthony, please proceed.
Agreement 4.00 requests the board's authority to execute depends upon requirements agreements with Courtesy Electric, Montel McDonough Joint Venture, Mundo Electric, and Pace Systems to provide job order contracting services for electrical low voltage work. This work includes, but is not limited to, power, data, AV, IT, and low voltage systems, as well as the installation and maintenance of security products such as access control, turnstiles, and closed circuit TV district-wide. The term of the agreements shall commence no sooner than April 8th, 2021 and run through April 7th, 2023. Each contractor shall be awarded work not to exceed $3 million for a total not to exceed value of $12 million for the contract term in support of the district's capital plan. All projects under these agreements with a price greater than $25,000 will be presented to the board for prior approval. These agreements shall also include 2 options to renew for 2 years each. Agreement 4.01 requests the board's authority to exercise the option to renew the depends upon requirements agreement with SET Environmental Incorporated to provide emergency environmental response services as well as other non-emergency cleanup services on an as-needed basis district-wide for the period of April 16, 2021 through April 15, 2022 at a total cost not to exceed $300,000 for the renewal term.
Good afternoon, everyone. Agreement 4.02. This is an approval request for an agreement with JP Morgan for district-wide banking services. An RFP was advertised on December 18, 2020, and JP Morgan was selected by the evaluation committee out of 5 respondents for its high qualifications, experience with nonprofit organizations, and the lowest fee proposal. The term of the agreement is for 5 years from July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2026, with 2 additional options to renew for 1 year period each or 1 additional 2-year term. This is at a total cost not to exceed $550,000 for the contract term. 4.03, this is a contract renewal request with FUDA Inc. to provide childcare meals to be delivered at the following colleges: Bailey, Malcolm X, Olive Harvey, and Truman. This is the 3rd renewal option. The term begins on May 3, 2021 through May 2, 2022, with 1 remaining option to renew for a 1-year period. This is at a total cost not to exceed $500,000 a year. Please note, yearly option renewals are required by the Illinois State Board of Education. I'll pause for a moment if there are any questions. 4.04, this is an agreement with TouchNet Information Systems, Inc. to utilize their payment gateway software to allow students to pay their tuition online through the CCC web portal. The term of the agreement is from June 1, 2021 through May 31, 2022, at a total cost not to exceed $80,000 for 1 year. Agreement 4.05, this is an option to renew an agreement with US Bank National Association to provide electronic payment card services for vendor payment. The term of the agreement is from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022, with no remaining options left on the agreement. This is at no cost to the district as it is a revenue sharing rebate based on our annual vendor spend.
Agreement 4.06 is a renewal with Pro Education Solutions that will close out over the remainder of this calendar year our use of their services for financial aid verification. In the scope of services going forward, ProEd will provide verification services for students applying for aid during the 2020 and 2021 academic year, and ensure migration of all prior and current verification documents to City Colleges. As City Colleges transitions away from ProEd solutions, we are building our own in-house process, taking what we've learned from the relationship, and we are already deploying that in-house process for students who have submitted a FAFSA for the 2021 and 22 academic year. Going forward, students will now have the option of submitting documentation electronically or coming in person to our campus financial aid offices to complete verification. This represents an enhancement in services compared to what existed before ProEd, and the move back in-house will allow City Colleges to monitor and manage our service levels with respect to turnaround times and responsiveness to questions that students have. The total cost of this renewal through December 31st, 2021 is not to exceed $200,000.
4.07 is for the authorization to execute an agreement with Telecom Innovation Group, TIG. TIG is a telecommunication firm that will support and maintain CCC's existing telecommunications systems, which includes all phones, call centers, communication, faxes, and voicemail. This agreement with TIG includes an annual software insurance and support of the telecommunications systems by providing systems upgrade, repairs, and troubleshooting. The terms of the agreement is for the period of April the 8th, 2021 and ending April 11th, 2023 at a total cost not to exceed $450,000.
Agreement 4.08 requests board authority to execute an agreement with WestEd to provide training and equity-focused continuous improvement. WestEd will provide capacity building that is critical to collective and inclusive efforts to design equity solutions and close equity gaps. We are requesting board authority for the period beginning April 29th, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 at a total cost not to exceed $75,000.
4.01 is for the purchase of the library security system and software, Biblioteca for Dawson Institute, the library, which is going to be provided in terms of the costs coming from a workforce equity grant from the state. Currently, Dawson does not have a library security system, so this is solely needed.
Thank you. I'd like to note too, that was agreement 4.09 to correction for the record. Thank you. Pending no questions on agreements, AVC Anthony, please proceed with the review of purchases 5.00 and 5.01.
Purchase 5.00 requests the board's authority for the monthly job order contractor construction projects to be performed by the listed contractors. Board reports 33312 and 34029 authorized the utilization of JOC as a construction delivery method to perform renovation services, deferred maintenance, and repairs. This month's report lists one project at Daly College for a total not to exceed amount of $185,029.58. Purchase 5.01 requests the board's authority for the monthly electrical low voltage job order contractor construction projects to be performed by the listed contractors. Board report 33705 authorized the utilization of JOC as a construction delivery method to perform low voltage electrical improvements, maintenance, and repairs. This month's report lists two projects for a total not to exceed amount of $26,162.46.
Thank you. If there are no questions on the purchases, General Counsel Gowan, please review item 6.00, the payment of legal invoices.
Item 6.00 requests approval of legal fees totaling $162,592.22. Such fees cover litigation, labor and employment, corporate, and higher ed matters.
Thank you. If there are no questions, Vice Chair Swanson, that concludes the review of this month's board reports.
Great, thank you. Thanks to everyone. And may I have a motion to discharge the April 8th, 2021 board packet, inclusive of the resolutions, personnel items, resource development report, agreements, purchases, and legal invoices included on today's committee agenda as part of the consent agenda to the April 8th, 2021 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, aye. Motion carried. So thank you all. Since there's no further business to come before the committee today, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried and we are adjourned. We will see you at the board meeting shortly. Thanks.